the bod. Today, we're joined by some eminent experts in the field of statistics and social and computational sciences. And before we get into that, I have a few homework items here to make sure that this webinar goes well. Like I mentioned, this is the third in our webinar series on future trends in social data sciences for public policy. In this webinar series, we're hoping to delve into the intricacies of social data science, of public policy, and to see how this new and emerging field is becoming increasingly relevant in sustainable development in other fields related to all three of these subject areas, including social science, data science, and public policy. And in these webinars, we are discussing these important topics. We're also uncovering the new career opportunities in this field and the emerging trends, areas for research, for collaboration, etc., that Amrita University and our growing network of collaborators can be involved in. Like I mentioned, we're joined by two experts today, and to save some time, their more lengthy bios will be shared in the chat window. But I'm very honored to be joined today by Mr. Shailendra Sigdel, who is the Statistical Advisor for South and West Asia in UNESCO New Delhi. We're also joined by Dr. Sriram Devanathan, who is currently the Principal, Amrita School of Engineering, Bengaluru. Thank you so much to the two of you for joining us today, where we hope to discuss, the areas where statistics and statistical science can not only improve our social science techniques as a key part of it, but also influence policy and understand how emerging techniques and technologies can bolster and demonstrate the evolution of this part of our computational social science fields. So thank you for both of you for joining today. A little bit of an overview for the webinar. After this introduction, we will have 2 rounds of questions for our panelists, followed by an open question and answer by our audience. And for anybody in the audience who does have a question for our panelists, for the faculty at Amrita, I encourage you to please chat in the Q&A box in the Zoom call or in the chat window. And our chat moderators will make sure that these questions are answered in the order they are received. We'll give you a few more reminders, but please do utilize that Q&A box for any questions you have. Joining me today in co-moderation is my colleague Ashwati, who is one of the faculty in the social data science and policy program. While she's based in Amritapuri, I'm based here in Faridabad. Together, we are helping to teach this program. You'll also notice that we have 2 other faculty, including Dr. Nimita Pandey and Dr. Drishti Marwaha. We are 6 total faculty, including Mr. Varun Velu and Victoria Ustenku. And we are very proud of this new program coming up, and we're excited to get into these topics here today. So without further ado, let's get going. My name is Christopher Coley. I'm the current head of program for this department, and I'll be helping with the question answer a little bit later on. All right, so I think to start with, Ashwati, you have the first round of questions for our panelists, so over to you.
Thank you, Christopher. Hope I'm audible sufficiently. Yeah. Okay. So we glad to be part of the session. To both our panelists, welcome to this again. So we will start with the round. So I will go with the first round of questions. Maybe first I will go with Shailendra ji. Like, how do you envision the future role of advanced statistical methods in creating a more positive impact of policies and generally in society? According to you, what are the most significant challenges in collecting and analyzing reliable and scalable data for policy?
Thank you, Avasti. Aswiti.
Ashwati,
No?
yes.
Yes.
Yes, you're right.
Being a Nepali, also very difficult to pronounce the Sanskrit word. How come?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, people usually start with Avasti, so it's understandable.
Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to have here, and so the credit goes to Nimita. She was the one asking me, like last week she has asked, I was not here, then I was on leave, and she said that's okay, you should join. And the question is really interesting the way you have framed the way we have to think about the statistical tools, statistical methodology or methods means the way I'm using the term, this thing is for the collecting, compiling, analyzing, and using these 4 terms together, because along with it also comes with the technological part, because we cannot think all these statistical things without thinking the technological development. One of the interesting, looking at the region, is it has really helped the using evidence-based decision making. Significantly, it has increased help to the policymaker. Why? One of the interesting part is by leveraging technology, machine learning, the policymaker can have more informed decision. This method can identify trend, forecast, outcomes. If I take one simple example also, if you collect data on the student's background, student's learning skill, based on that, you can also predict where it will go in the coming days. That's one of the advantages. And slowly, most of the cases, all the policymakers are aware with the statistics. It's not the case like 20 years ago. People are showing interest, people are using data, people are using technology, but still it is too far from the required, the advancements of the statistics. Second, I would say that it also helps you to understand make a policy on the targeted intervention. For example, blanket doesn't work. If I take a simple example, if you see in the world, the people-teacher ratio in primary level, if I lead the African countries, largely is 1:25, 30 or 35, not more than that. But when you go disaggregated data, the school level distribution of teachers is huge difference from one school to other, one region to other, one district to other. So that way, the technology will allow you to analyze this by school, by subject, and then you can make a policy for the targeted intervention, which was not possible many years ago, few years ago, you can say. And one other typical example is everybody is behind why children are not learning. The basic thing, if you see the data is there, where the learning level is low, in which socioeconomic background, and which region with districts. It also helps to what intervention could help. It is not like the health. Sometimes health, I give an example of health. Health, you have a headache, you have a paracetamol, you'll be fixed. But education is not like a one-to-one relationship. We can make it. Definitely, you need a comprehensive interventions which help you to move forward. That's one of the examples. And the teacher training, when you see the other example on the UNESCO ADR, we work. Teacher training, generally we see the generic teacher training. But when you go for the evidences by collecting data, which intervention has impacted on teacher learning, accordingly, you can also develop a tailor-made teacher training model for specific teachers. That helps you to enhance the quality. The third aspect, I would say, the real-time data. Before starting, like we had a quick chat among us about the COVID. Real-time data is really, really important. Sometimes, like you have to intervene quickly. Let's say, example, the flood. In the monsoon is for us. Without monsoon, we cannot survive. With monsoon also, it's very difficult to survive. So that way, in the monsoon, there's a huge flood. But if you have real-time data, look at this, impact of the hurricane, floods, are at least loss of human life is becoming low, is because of the technology. Because earlier warning system, that's what is happening. Same thing we can also introduce in the education system. If you have a certain background, certain level of learning, you can also warn to send to the parents that your children are not learning, are not coming to school even. That way, it is really, really helpful to have a real-time data. One example is, another example is teacher absenteeism. We are saying that teacher absenteeism is huge. many regions in the country, if I take Northeast, many region has introduced recently the face recognition. Teacher has to go and then show the face, but it also record your location. You can show in the mobile by sitting Delhi also, but it also track the location. That's why whether he or she is attending from the school location or other one. The last one, this is not the last one, there are many aspects. One is definitely transparency and accountability. So everybody is saying that the children are not learning, or the access to universal education is too far still. It also makes us responsible, accountable, that why we are not there, whose responsibility, how it comes responsibility. That also makes a lot of sense for the decision-making process, that, okay, I'm accountable to make the universal primary education. If you see all the development plan, it say that, okay, we'll make a GER at the higher education level is certain level, or primary level, secondary level will have universal education. This also commitment to make it accountable comes from international commitment, regional commitment, as well as the national commitment. So it comes from the different way, but it helps to monitor, to make accountable. Your second question is significant challenges. I would say the significant challenge is these days is low priority with high expectation of a statistics area. You have so many expectations, but in terms of priority, when it comes to resource allocation, in terms of other, is low. Why? And the second challenge, what I see, are we collecting quality data enough or relevant data enough? I give many times, one of the example is, I want to know how many left-handed teachers are in the world. It's a good idea to learn. But after that, what you'll do? If you don't do it, don't invest on this. So Chris and I are, bald here. So I also want to know how many bald head teachers are in India. But after getting, what we'll do? If you don't have a plan, don't collect data. It's a wastage of resources. Second is, every time we say whatever we are collecting data is quality not enough, whether we have proper quality assurance mechanism. That is one of the real challenge, and huge gap, I would say huge gap on capacity of analyzing, utilizing of data. We have huge data collected, but still in terms of analyzing and utilizing is less. That's why those who are interested on this area, I think it's a huge opportunity. The fourth one, which we are facing really, is a standardization of variable. When you collect the data, you have you keep a variables, you design, but there is no standardization. And to make the data international compatible, you have to make a certain thing standard. Then only you can make a data standardized. And the linking, sometimes, data analyze and use for the policy making. And the time series data, definitely time series, sometimes like you have maybe 10 years back data, and then you have data, but there is no mechanism in between. You have changed many things, not thinking about the standardization, or it is necessary to make the standardization for the time series data and the comparable time series data. The last one I see the most important part is interdisciplinary data. Let me go to COVID again. COVID, we are collecting data. It was fine. But the health sector was also collecting data. But we don't know how many people are vaccinated. If we would have thought of from the beginning, like we have Aadhaar card now, linking with this Aadhaar card to health and education together, we would have fantastic data. We would have reacted quickly. Okay, this school doesn't have a vaccine. This school doesn't have the internet facility. Or this school something is missing. We can intervene. That makes the interdisciplinary is really good. One is the education sector analyze say that though children are first generation learner, their learning capacity is lower than is a second generation learner or third generation learner. If we have that data, then you can also, the teacher or the professor, you guys are professor, to also can focus on those who are first learner on a specific thing for the second learner for specific. Right now, you don't have also information. One is there's a lack of information, even the teaching learning processes. Other is even you have a data, but you don't have a capacity to how to make or how to utilize this. The challenge is data, how to communicate the data. The real part is how to communicate so that the policymaker understand the data. When you see, if I take an example here, I have a publication from ministry. You'll see thousands of tables. But the policymaker cannot go with thousands of tables. It should be a specific, that's where they're lacking. Maybe the graph, line, or something so that easily the policymaker can understand and use, so that we'll have evidence-based planning monitor, not based on the judgmental thing. Many cases that I came from the bureaucratic background also. Sometimes we have faced as the bureaucrats think about whatever they have seen is absolute, which is not true. Maybe it's one of the area to improve. For example, providing scholarship. If you provide the scholarship and if you have like the other information, his or father's occupation, income, also again the second generation, third generation learner, and then economic and the social background, it will be a perfect idea to target it, those students who has certain background, who has a different background helps. I will stop here. Thank you very much.
That was very like informative, and also the points that contextualization matters, international standardization matters, and also like that challenge you mentioned when interdiscipline comes into the picture. Can't agree more in all those things. Thank you for that input, sir. So maybe next question I will move on to Sriram, sir. Hi, sir. So the question to you is like, according to you, what are the primary challenges in applying the statistical and computation analysis to social issues, especially for marginalized, vulnerable, or otherwise underrepresented groups? How can these challenges be overcome through emerging technologies or methodologies in data science to enhance the effectiveness of these solutions?
Thank you, Ashwati. And first of all, it was really lovely to hear the thoughts of my fellow panelist, Shailendra ji. Thank you for setting the stage and the context. And thank you, Chris, for this opportunity. Very happy to be here. Now, for those who are in the audience, I just thought that I'll try to take a complementary approach. And how scientists are always looking at the inductive versus deductive kind of thing. So if we look at Shailendra ji's stand as inductive, I'm going to try and take more of a deductive kind of approach to it, just for variety's sake. So in that sense, I'm going to look at it in a little bit more broader way, but I'll come back to the specifics as Ashwati is requested. So first thing is the topic itself, or rather the name of the degree, Social Data Sciences and Public Policy. I just wanted to point out for the audience that inside that name, if you break it down into its components, the words there, one, you have the science part, the knowledge part of it, the social and data science, that is clear. Then there is the stakeholder part of it, which is the public. And then there is the methodology part of it, which is the policy. Now, the methodology part of it, interestingly here, normally when we look at methodology, One part of it is the methodology for acquisition of knowledge and for meaning derivation and so on. But the other part of it is also for the practical aspect, the implementation. Interestingly, policy is something that captures both. And I believe this is very important to recognize, because you see, if you take a look at the etymology of policy, politics, police, and so on, all of them have the root meaning of control. So automatically, when you do this, there are elements of thou shalt not kind of thing. So the implementation comes into picture. There is power embedded in the policy. There is power by virtue of the meaning. There is power by virtue of the authority that, or the social institution that has taken it up and disseminated it, that has put it into the field. So I wanted to recognize this. First of all, I thought this was a very commendable title for a degree, that it captures pretty much everything that you would want to capture, both the philosophy and the practice aspect of it, the methodology aspect of it. So I thought that was a very nice title, which normally you don't have that kind of a coverage. Now, when I said earlier that I want to take a kind of complementary approach and go look at it in a broader way, perhaps I can draw attention to three kinds of marriages that I think should happen in order to answer Ashwati's question. These three kinds of marriages. First marriage is in terms of philosophy and practice. I think that is extremely important, and especially the statistics versus mathematics, because I think in the topic there is sort of a reference to statistics and computation. And naturally, mathematics comes in along with statistics. So the philosophy part in terms of understanding what statistics tries to do versus what mathematics tries to do, I think that would be, in my opinion, worth reflecting on. So the first marriage is that of philosophy and practice. And then I'll just use this integration of statistics and mathematics as an example of that marriage. The second marriage that I would like to talk about is in terms of behavioral sciences and natural sciences. The other and so on. So my submission is that we should always be prepared to employ this pair as a married couple rather than as two separate individuals. Now that I have given these three different marriages, I want to get down from there to certain specifics. What do I mean by the first kind of marriage, philosophy versus practice? So I mentioned about that analogy of mathematics and statistics. I want to give very simple definitions for mathematics and statistics, just for the purposes of illustration, so that we understand the difference in the philosophies or the outlooks of these two fields of knowledge. Mathematics, as it turns out, says, I am going to try and represent everything in this world, everything in the phenomenal world, exactly. Mathematics says, I am going to try and represent everything in this world exactly. Statistics says that is impossible. Statistics says there is going to be uncertainty guaranteed. So there's going to be uncertainty in everything that you try to represent. And so there is automatically sort of opposing perspectives when it comes to mathematics and statistics. Therefore, I would like to submit that while statistics is a son or a daughter of mathematics, it has diametrically opposite perspective and approach in terms of how it works, how it gathers knowledge. So if now in a lot of textbooks, the standard definition that is given for statistics to me is a little bit boring. It is correct, but it is a little bit boring. What they normally talk about is, it says it's the science of planning, collecting, analyzing, and inferencing of data. Nothing wrong with that, but I would like to submit a slightly different kind of definition of statistics. Now, this definition, first I'll give you a slightly longer one, and then I'll just give you just 2 words for the definition. So the definition that I would like to propose is one part of it is that everything in life, everything in the phenomenal world can be represented as a process. It doesn't matter what it is, in what field of knowledge and so on. That everything in life can be represented as a process. And the second part is that every process has variation. Okay, so now quantum physics has clearly proved both of these statements. So if that is accepted just for the moment, then we can start by saying that statistics is all about these 2 words, understanding variation. Understanding variation. So there is going to be uncertainty, there's going to be variation in everything. So how is it that we can go about understanding variation? Where does it come from? How much is it? So that is a fundamental premise. So whenever we talk about any kind of statistical approach, it will be very useful, in my opinion, to first recognize this fundamental definition that we are looking at understanding variation of whatever nature it might be. Then the second marriage that I spoke about was the behavioral sciences and natural sciences. Now, it turns out that of these 2, behavioral sciences is younger of the 2, and compared to natural sciences. And it took a while for it to be recognized as a science, and that we know. Nothing new about this. And this marriage is very important, because now if we come to the third marriage, qualitative and quantitative, many students, I would say, possibly fail to recognize that while quantitative looks at what you may be measuring, how you may be measuring, qualitative looks at what you may be measuring. Because how do you know what to measure? How do you know what to measure? So qualitative analysis and behavioral sciences have been the greatest contributors in terms of identifying what to measure. So when we look at the word qualitative, and look at the etymology of that, it has to do with nature. It has to do with properties and attributes. So the moment you say qualitative, you are actually going to something very, very fundamental. And therefore, if you say I'm going to measure, naturally something has to precede that. What are you going to measure? I have to identify what I'm going to measure. Then I'll say I'm going to measure. So qualitative precedes quantitative. And if this appreciation is there, then we would pay a lot more, I think, importance to this. Now I'm going to integrate all of these, that these 3 marriages should help us to be convinced that whenever we talk about statistics, 1, we want to try and understand variation. 2, statistics should not be limited in its definition to just quantitative data. I think a lot of times we are guilty of making this kind of a error. Statistics is not just about quantitative data. Statistics is a way of thinking where we say, I know that there's going to be variation. How do I characterize this variation? Then I can come to how do I quantify the variation. So if I understand it this way, then we can start approaching. So you look at this public part, the policy part, and the science part. And we start asking if there are challenges, what are the challenges in each of those? Is there a challenge in the public part? Let us say, for example, education. So it could be a big challenge in terms of the public part. What about the policy? Definitely there could be biases. So there is a challenge with respect to that. What about the science part? Again, there could be biases. So we understand that in all three of these, the knowledge acquisition, the information acquisition, and the interpretation, the meaning derivation, in all of these, we have to be very careful in terms of what are the opportunities for bias to creep in. It turns out, interestingly, that in the future, if we are looking at the advent of AI, or it's already here, but in what way is it going to impact, and how do we prepare ourselves for it? There is obviously going to be a human element, and there is going to be the algorithmic element. Now, it turns out that there are very subtle kinds of biases that can creep in. Now, let me just give some 2 or 3 different examples of these biases so that we understand the challenges that may come in. I moved to the US for my graduate studies in the year 1990, and at that time, neural networks were kind of the in thing. And I remember Carnegie Mellon had a huge program in terms of neural networks and driverless automobile operations and so on, self-driving cars and so on. Now, at that time, I remember there was a British school, a medical school in UK that was found to be guilty of bias in terms of its admissions. So they blamed it on the algorithm that was being used, an AI algorithm that was being used. I'm talking about early 90s or late 80s, I think, somewhere around that time. They blamed it on the algorithm, saying that this algorithm seems to have a bias in terms of bias against women applicants and non-European applicants. So they dug a little bit deeper into it. And what they found was that the percentage error that this algorithm had was actually far less than the manual process. Second, that the college actually had the highest number of non-European, highest proportion or percentage of non-European applicants. So now you see there is one issue here. If we overly and blindly subscribe to this, certainly there could be some consequences and penalties here, that you just blindly believe the AI algorithm or you blindly blame it, there could be a problem. So here was a case where the algorithm was performing well, but there were some other human interventions that were spoiling the contribution of the algorithm. Now we can look at the reverse problem. So what could be a reverse problem in terms of, let us say the algorithm is at fault and humans are okay, they are not biased. Now for this, I remember, I think it was a study on heart disease or heart attack, cardiac arrest and cardiac episodes, prediction of those. And what they used as a predictor was that your the arm would go numb, or you may feel a tingling kind of sensation and so on. This was used as a predictor. And it turned out to have strong correlations. But then suddenly they found it was doing a lot of, it was making a lot of errors. And then when they analyzed it deeper, they found that it just couldn't predict for women. So whatever this model was doing, it was okay for men, but it was not okay for women. It turns out that for women, back spasms, back pain, and those kinds of things were much better predictors. So you see now the data itself was gathered only on men, but not on women, then certainly that model is going to be biased. Now, where do we ascribe the blame in this case? So the answer would be certainly whoever was designing this study, what did they have in mind when they conducted the study on only one segment of the population? Certainly that raises a lot of red flags. So like this, whatever algorithm we may come up with, whatever AI tool we may come up with, this will go back and forth. The human element is going to determine the performance of the AI algorithm, and the AI algorithm's performance, when validated, is going to go back to the human and say, and the humans will say, how can I improve upon this, and so on. It's an iterative process. So in this iterative process, if we can keep in mind that, one, the philosophy of statistics relies on understanding variation. Two, qualitative precedes quantitative. Therefore, never ignore the qualitative, because that is going to give you what variables you're going to measure, what constructs you're going to measure, and so on. And three, do not discount philosophy, because that is what is going to guide the approach for knowledge acquisition. So I took a very broad stand, but I hope that it served some purpose.
That is wonderful, sir. Like how you covered almost from theory to the practice, and then from the data collection aspect also. That is very intuitive, what you said. Since we don't have, I have more questions to you to ask following questions, but since we don't have sufficient time, I will take it forward for the next time. And just want to remind the attendees also, if you have any questions you would like to chat with the experts, please drop in the chat box. We can take it forward as the time permits. So with this, we are coming to end to the round one. We are going to the round two. So I will hand over the session to Christopher. Over to you, Christopher.
Thanks, Ashwati. I think we're off to a great start. And in fact, the questions that were prepared for round two are really nicely connected to the answers so far. And in fact, in a beautiful way, the question I have for Shailendra ji will be a response in a way to what Sriram sir was mentioning, and vice versa. So I do just want to mention that we have about 15 minutes, 20 minutes left. And we do want to allow some Q&A for the attendees as well. So if we could, in this next round, try to keep our answers between 5 minutes or so, I think we'll have lots of time then for the Q&A. However, I know with Sriram sir, we'll have a lot of chance to engage further in this program. And I hope also with Shailendra ji, we can invite you back for more webinars, classes and such. I think we have a lot to learn from you, your perspective and everything. It's really valuable. So thank you. So let's get to round two of the questions here. First one, following the same pattern for Shailendra ji. This is, in a way, if you can respond to what Sriram sir was mentioning in terms of the human element of combining the philosophy, the statistics, and the data analysis of it all. And building on your work within the UN ecosystem, where do you see the role of computational tools and statistical models, etc., in addressing sustainable development challenges in particular? For example, education inequality, public health crises, the COVID pandemic, for example. And then a little bit further, can you discuss any successful case studies where data-driven approaches have led to significant policy improvements?
Thank you very much. I think I'll try to finish in 5 minutes. The question is really interesting in the way you have said, the tools was really helps a lot on filling the data gaps. The basic practical thing is, it also calculates, it's also some of the cases when I take an example of the SDG. SDG has 169 government, global indicators out of 17 SDGs. Still, we have huge gap. Why huge gap? In some cases, data are not produced. Some cases, data are produced, but internationally not comparable. Third is the type of things we have asked, the country is not ready. Fourth is definitely the investment part. If I take a simple example, the gap in the model, gap in the SDG, if I take an example of SDG 4, huge gap on learning and the functional literacy. Why it is the gap? The most of the cases, the learning is the many countries in the region which has produced the data, but it is not comparable. The technology, when you say the modeling have helped a lot. We have used exactly what you are saying, the statistical modeling we have used to produce two data, completion rate and the out of school children, where you see the gaps are really limited. So this is helpful. Definitely we should be using, and every time whenever I have this kind of opportunity, I say that we are a statistician, we are not accountant. So that way, I think it's a train is important. The other factor, how it is contributing, is really important factor to look at this. One of the things I cannot finish without giving an example of the COVID. When COVID has introduced, all the schools are closed. Large number of schools are closed, but still classes were running in majority cases. Why? The technology has helped a lot. So most of the countries have used the technology in the crisis, in the pandemic period, collecting data, organizing online classrooms, where they have set the technological foundations. There was no technological foundation, there was not possible at all. One of the area, let's take one example of, I'm using this, one of the countries in the region, small country, Bhutan. Bhutan has developed a mechanism, technology to collect data real time, almost real time data from each school, maybe like 5 years ago. During the COVID, it was really useful because they used to collect the GPS also. When they have this, they came to know that's where the school is located and where we can provide the vaccinations to the student, and how even they don't have a big establishment for the technological, how the Google Meet can be also utilized for the learning. That's way the foundation is always on the policy part, is always a data, which Sriramji has exactly mentioned, is not, don't disaggregate between quantitative or qualitative. We need something so that we can make a decision, that or like monitor the decision. The similar example, if I take example of India has the largest school in the world, 1.5 million school. It's a huge number. Why technology is leveraging? But here, when I say this one, it needs three things together. We have to think. One is technology, other is capacity, third one is governance. Because in the data governance is a really important aspect. If data governance or evidence-based planning, monitoring is not in place, then you cannot think about whatever technology you have, whatever sophisticated statistics you have, is not going to use. When you combine it, that's one of the fantastic things that India managed to collect data from maybe within 6 months of time from the 1.5 million school, but you have around 1,200 universities. It takes more than 1 year to collect it. So the way we think, school doesn't have a technology where we are able to collect, where the university has everything, it's not. So that, I think, is one of the area to the student where you are thinking about. We have to also think about is not the availability of the technology or the statistics. It's also using the proper technology, adequate technology, and utilize it on time. That makes a lot of difference what we are discussing for the policy making and the public policy discourse, the three things together. Then only we can think about the whole ecosystem of data producing, using, and analyzing. I stop here. Thank you very much.
It's a really insightful view into this, like you mentioned, a system that's really required. And I love how you pointed out these three things of technology, capacity, and governance. And in a way, they lead to each other, right? You have the right technology, you have the capacity to use it, then it can inform governance. But at the same time, you mentioned, for example, Bhutan. They already had a governance policy in place where investing in schools' technology infrastructure was a part of their work. And that allowed for this cycle to continue. So it's really a circle that feeds itself. And it can be a good cycle, or it could be a bad one, depending on the kinds of policy, the kind of leadership, and that kind of thing. I'm reminded of the famous saying that technology is but a tool. It amplifies what's already there. It's neither good nor bad. I really appreciate your answer there. Thank you, sir. Now, Sriram, sir, over to you. I'm sure many of us are very aware, but apart from being an accomplished professional in this field, you're also an educator. And that's quite clear in the first answer you gave. And I know Shailendra focused a lot on capacity building. So my second question to you would be focused on this element of capacity building and how important it is for this field. And so considering the increasing importance of interdisciplinary collaboration, for example, how can statistical and computational sciences be integrated in education, in training, in capacity building, to better prepare professionals who work in this field of social data science and policy?
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, it's quite the need of the hour, to say the least. You know, when I look at the students from physical sciences and engineering streams in India, but possibly across the world. But in India, it's been a direct kind of experience for me when I say this. Their approach to sustainability, their understanding of social responsibility, I would say, is very, very, very basic. And it's also very, very, very biased. And I feel this happens because of lack of adequate dimensions to learning. The typical student, I'm doing a little bit of stereotyping here. The typical student who goes to undergraduate education in engineering and in physical sciences, they are, I think, almost prompted to not pay any attention to social sciences, to humanities, and so on. It's very, very unidimensional. And now, so Chris, based on what you are saying about this integration of technology and let's say equity and governance and so on, imagine that many of these students, they become technocrats, they become industrialists. And so the biases that creep in over there, they are going to be doing a lot of powerful handshakes with policymakers, powerful handshakes with maybe even heads of NGOs and so on because of corporate social responsibility schemes. But the biases creep in, and so the implementation is definitely not up to par. And I think an example of this is that Tata, MIT, and IIT Bombay, along with Oxford, they have a consortium exclusively dedicated to assessing why massive funding from UN, World Bank, and so on, why all these have done very poorly. In fact, the whole focus is on it's because, I mean, we know on the one hand that there could be factors such as corruption, but it's not just that. There are many other things behind this. It's not so simple. And so when we look at this, we understand the immensity and the complexity of this problem, that the education that is being doled out as of now leaves a lot to be desired in terms of this integration. This integration of looking at social responsibility of technology, social responsibility of research, so social responsibility of educational institutions, social responsibility in terms of policymakers with respect to education. even when you look at the NEP 2020, the National Education Policy 2020, even there, it does not have adequate coverage of this particular aspect, this kind of integration. I would say there are some simple things and some difficult things. The simple thing I would say is that one, in terms of the conceptual understanding, that there should be at the very least a mandatory sociology course for all students, regardless of what stream they may be in, what majors they may pick, but there must be a sociology course for everybody. And the second part is something that Amrita University's Chancellor Amma has been doing already, which is the sensitization part, and where there could be an understanding, there could be an intellectual understanding of this integration, but the motive, the inner motivation or the driving force, that comes when you see things directly, when you get your hands dirty out in the field, when you see the blaring conditions of inequities, that has to be tasted. You have to feel the stink of it. And I think only then the driving force will kick into action. So I think that Amma has done through many programs, and our students, at least a significant portion of them, I think, get sensitized in that sense. But I think if that could be formalized in both the state and the national level, I think that could go a long way. So this is something that I feel could be considered for our policy as well.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I come from a liberal arts background where all students are required to take philosophy, sociology, these kind of foundational courses because of how important it is. So I think, especially as our technology advances beyond our collective ability to keep up, governments especially will be seeking out these professionals who have this kind of niche knowledge base. And unless they also have a strong ethical foundation, a strong sociological foundation, you're right, sir, there's no way that this can be properly translated into policy recommendations where, you know, the people who need the help are going to get it. Yeah, I think in a way, Amrita is leading the pack globally in providing opportunities for students across fields to get involved in fieldwork like that. So thank you. Just like Ashwati, I have countless follow-up questions for both of you. But maybe I'll turn it over to the audience Q&A now for the remaining time. Before that, I just want to mention that after we say goodbye to our panelists, there will be a short presentation on our new master's program in social data science and policy. So anybody who's interested in learning more, learning how to apply for the program, you're welcome to stay on. But it's not required by any means. So, okay, over to you, Ashwati, for the audience Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher. So I will straight away go to the audience session. So we have some questions that have come in, 5 to 6 questions. So I'll go with the one. That is one from BTech second year student, D.O. Vaibhav from Coimbatore campus. His question is to Shailendra, sir. In the monsoon, there are natural calamities in the hilly areas like Himachal and Uttarakhand, causing a severe damage. So his question is, how can we approach these problems through data science so that we could reduce the impact and repair the infrastructure more effectively and efficiently?
Yes, thank you very much. The question is really interesting. Though in my answering your first question, I gave some example. That's like how you can predict it in the natural calamity. You know, the way right now it works. If the flood start from the top, is always start from the top. It takes some time to reach in the bottom. So one of the ideas in the technology, there is a technology that's okay, flood has started and alerting. In many cases, Nepal, India, Bhutan cases are using the similar way. That's okay, something. The second one is you have cloud bursting. Then you have an idea that's okay, where it has gone and where, like it may affect. That's why it alerts, and that way it helps. The time series data, how level of water is gathering or occupying in some of the area, maybe because of the floods, because of the like landslide, that also gives an idea that's okay. There is a there is a heavily the rivers are stocked. That's why it may release, and sometimes it is also a technology that it helps to predict. So these are the few examples. It's really helpful, and it is most of the countries are using it here also. Whenever you see that the Sikkim case, if I take current example, Sikkim, when it was started from the Himalaya, everybody was alerted that though even alerted, there are many damages, many people lost their life, but in terms of number, it was really lower than it was expected because it was already alerted. Like the people have left their houses there, where they were living, where they were warning not to stay. That way, like a technology helps. Hope Vaibhav is happy with the answer.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So then I will go ahead with the next question from Keva. So the question is like, in case where data is not adequate for policy making, what is your opinion in data extrapolated to increase the study power and the ethical ramifications? He doesn't have this question specific for any of you, both of you. Feel free to answer.
Okay, maybe I can start. When I was studying, I was working, I was a young professional. And when I was trying to get some data, I couldn't get it. I went to see my boss, and he said that this is your finding. No data is also a finding, is also a data. So that's way, I think one way data is sometimes inadequate, but how you can increase the power, and ethical is a different way of thinking. One of the is the gap data, what I say, that's not finding data. The extrapolating is not a bad idea, extrapolating, but based on what? You cannot extrapolate everything without having nothing. And that definitely, like the biasness means, like there are many biasness, like Sriram has also pointed out, these ethical biasness on the AI these days, like one of the area is to control the biasness in AI. Similar way, biasness comes in everything. As much as possible, we have to reduce, we have to minimize. That is definitely, it should not be the case. Otherwise, the way extrapolation is not a bad idea.
Sriram sir, would you like to add something to this?
Sure. So there is a statement from a quotation I remember from George Box, who's one of the most famous statisticians. He's no longer alive, but he said all models are wrong, some are better than others. So this effort, when you say that data is inadequate, my response is it's always going to be inadequate. It'll never be adequate. But we will just get better and better. As we go forward in time, we'll get better. For sure, we'll get better. There will be cases where our intellectual capacity will help in terms of the reasoning, in terms of its intuitive power, and so on, in terms of its experience. Some of those things that we consider under the broad term of experience, it may not even be possible to capture it. At least right now, we can't claim to have captured everything that we label under the word experience. And so that human intervention, I think, will help. But one aspect that I would like to just touch upon in that question that is given is that if data is not adequate and then you want to increase the study power, I think that is contradictory. It is not possible, first of all. There is a direct correlation between sample size and power. If the sample size is small, then the power will also drop. So it will be contradictory to say that the data is not enough and then you want to increase the power. That's just not possible. But we can always be careful about what we include under the word data. Data doesn't mean, as I said, just the quantitative data. Reasoning is also data. Philosophizing is also data. Experience is also data. So given that combination, yes, I think there is a chance of increasing the power. But if you absolutely say no data, then it would be contradictory. The last part, the ethical ramifications. I just want to give one example. Is it okay? Just 1 minute. I'll just quickly.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. See, AI, if you look at who's developing it, it is these computer scientists, they are all engineers and so on. For the most part, they're all engineers that design and develop these models and the algorithms. But you see that left to themselves, that would be dangerous in some ways. See, there is a case study where somebody said, okay, let us, because biases can creep in because of gender and race and all that, let us take all these out and then make it neutral, make the data neutral so that the algorithm will not be biased in any way. So what do they do? Normally they'll have, race, gender, sexual orientation. These are kind of common ones. And they removed it. They cleaned up the data and that's made it kind of neutral. And then they sent it out and they developed the model and so on. And they found it was still biased and it was still in favor of men and against women. They were wondering what was going on. So it turns out that biases can creep in very subtle ways. It turns out that in this case, the algorithm was smart enough to sort of cluster and zoom in on words like executed, captured, these kinds of words, which are a little bit more patriarchal. And they showed up repeatedly in men's resumes, but not so much on women's resumes in the job applications. So the algorithm picked it up and it developed a bias towards in favor of men and against women. So now you can't expect an engineer to develop this kind of thinking. This is where that marriage of the behavioral scientist and the natural scientist is absolutely critical. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So I'll go to the next question soon. Then the next one is like, this is also open to both of you. Any one of you can answer this. Like data science and related technologies are now influencing almost all sectors. Do you have any tips for how can we combine data science in different disciplines? For example, relating data science with electronics, civil engineering and beyond.
Shailendra sir, please go ahead.
No, I think the first you go, then I will add some practicality.
I would just say that the development of tools should again not be left to experts in one field. So today, if we look at tools like in vivo, things which might do these qualitative analysis, they have benefited because there has been some cross-pollination of ideas from people from different fields, but it happened over a long period of time. It was not instantaneous. But still the world, I feel, has not woken up, especially the corporate world, which develops these software tools. There is not a truly cross-functional team that feeds information into these. There's a few practitioners of qualitative research methods that give feedback, and then they develop a tool based on that input. And then they have a few more who may come up with enhancements to existing hypothesis testing, and then they develop some tools based on that. But it's those are all sort of patches and band-aid approaches. I think at the design stage, I feel is where the critical aspect of integration has been missing. I think there we need greater collaboration of the behavioral scientists and the natural scientists. And if that happens, I think we have a chance.
Thank you.
I cannot agree more. That's why one of the definitely the way the world is running, for each time everything. For the psychometric analysis, one thing, for something for R, something for SPSS, in many cases it is not even open. In that way, one of the area is we have to think there how we can make the world should try to make the open software, which is one of the area to think about together, so that it will not have bothered much. And the intersectorality all in all, for different things, and making one seems practically maybe it's not feasible. Maybe the technology will come, maybe the AI, when the AI comes in power, maybe, you know, we can think about the making it integration for all type of things with the one so-called integrated software. Right now, the way it's functioning is different purpose for different software, which is really expensive and it's really cumbersome. You have to understand all this software, which is not a good idea to continue.
Yeah, that's quite, understandable. Yeah. So I'll move on to the next question. So this is to the Shailendra sir. What kinds of careers do you think are coming up in the field of social data science and policy? And what skills and competencies do you think are more crucial for future policy analysts, particularly students who aspire to work in this field?
I think huge market, I would say. The first sentence is, there's a huge market, but you have to also understand that the world is changing really fast. If I take my one example, when I was young, I used to calculate one indicator in the education statistics. I would consider as one of the best statistician in the country. Now the situation has changed. That's why you have to keep updating. But in terms of career, in UNESCO also there is like the career on this. There are many other agencies, UNICEF, UNDP, all these. So those who are working, majority we are working in the social sector. That's why I don't think there is a problem of the getting inside. But really, it's another opportunity, or you can say the challenge is you have to compete to the world. You cannot compete within India or within the region. The world is open. You have to compete with the world. Once you are there, maybe like it's also lesson for all the university schools we are running in the country. We have to also make a student knowledgeable, which can contribute and compete with the world, not within the periphery of the region and the country and the village. I hope he's happy with the answer.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Sriram sir, would you like to add something?
I'm going to hazard sort of a projection for the future. That there would be 3 areas where I feel it's going to grow in terms of careers. One, just as you have business analytics, I'm going to hazard a guess that education analytics is going to grow tremendously. And second is in terms of students from all disciplines, if they add on knowledge of social psychology, I think that's going to help a lot. Just one example, there is this tool called ProBot, which is used for surgery and medical surgery. And then now it worked really well. It worked so well that the doctors simply had to be available. So they position the surgical arm and the tool at the right place, and then they sit back and they just hold in their hand an emergency stop button. And that's all they have to do. Now, surgeons are not used to doing that. For them, it was unbearable to watch all this and not do anything. So none of them gave a favorable review. So they said, we don't want this. We feel helpless if we are watching this thing, doing all that, and we are not intervening, and they just couldn't bear it. So now there is that social element. There's a social psychological element as well. That needs to be understood by the technologists and by the practitioners as well. So I think that element will come into all the future sort of implementations of AI and similar areas. So I think I'll just stop with that. I had a couple more, but I'll stop here.
Ashwati, you're on mute. Sorry.
So I think we have 1 or 2 more questions, but I think we have covered the answers over the other questions. And since we are also in short of time, maybe we'll stop the question answer session here. So I will pass on to Christopher. You want to take forward? Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ashwati, and thank you to our panelists and for the audience for asking superb questions and eliciting such wonderful responses from our panelists. It's up to me now to deliver the very short vote of thanks. So thank you again, Dr. Sriram, Devanathan, and Mr. Shailendra Sigdel. It's been a pleasure to listen to you. I look forward to more interactions in the future, either in this format or in others. I really think that our students in this upcoming program and across Amrita and really across the world, you spoke on something that's really at the heart of our success as a species in the future, I would say, in a democracy in this kind of evolving climate. These are such important topics. And I can't help but echo what both of you have said, that we have to keep up. We have to keep up, and we have to make sure that the next policies, the next technologies are avoiding the mistakes of the past. And I think we have a lot to learn and a lot of room for growth as well. So thank you to both of you. Thank you to my fellow moderator, Ashwati, to my faculty at the School of Social Behavioral Sciences. Thank you to our IT department for helping to set up this wonderful webinar. Thank you again to all of our attendees. This wouldn't be a webinar without you, so thank you so much. And that wraps it up for all of us here. In case you're interested, I do have about a 5-10 minute presentation on our new master's program, Social Data Science and Policy. So if you're interested to attend, please stay online. Otherwise, I will say namaste and thank you to everybody, and hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Christopher and the team. It was a pleasure meeting you and all the students, all the Sriramji. It was really pleasure, nice chatting each other, and looking forward, maybe next time we'll have a more conversation in this area. Thank you very much. I have to leave. I have to join other one also. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Yeah.
Thank you. Namaste.
Namaskar. Okay, so just 1 second while I bring up my screen here, and I'll quickly go through the presentation. Ashwati, is my screen visible now? Okay, wonderful. All right, so thank you again for everybody for this great webinar. I just have a short presentation on our upcoming master's program, Masters of Science in Social Data Science and Policy. This is a bit of the summary of the program, our curriculum, and what students can expect if they choose to apply for this program here. This is being offered at the School of Social Behavioral Sciences at our Amrita Faridabad campus in the Delhi NCR region. So be the first time this program is offered, and actually the first time in India and perhaps around the world that such a program is being offered at this level, at this PG level. So it's a unique program, not only within Amrita, but around the country, where students will have a truly foundational educational experience, not only in social research, social science research and theory, but also in data science and emerging technologies like machine learning, generative AI, etc., as well as context-driven, informed policy, public policy interventions. So it's really a holistic and unique program that students can sign up for. There are these 3 foundational pillars that form the basis of our program. Of course, in social sciences, we're learning about the fundamental principles, including elements of sociology, anthropology, social philosophy, how we can critically evaluate policies for sustainable development. What does that even mean? What does sustainable development mean within the context of India, the global South, and of course, universally? We're working with applications of systems approaches and understanding how field research can be an essential part of our policy and our data science programs. Under the data science umbrella, students will gain technical skills in data collection, analysis, as well as programming and data visualization techniques that are emerging now, right? I mentioned elements of machine learning, natural language processing. And these can be helpful in evaluating our fieldwork, in combining various kinds of data sets into a holistic whole that can be used by social scientists and policymakers to improve sustainable development. And also we have foundational elements of policy. As we are an Indian university, we're focusing on the Indian context and the global South context, but these are universal applications as well. So students will gain a background in policy history, policy values, and various principles that policymakers use in identifying what policies will be enacted, how they're implemented, how they're monitored and evaluated and improved over time. So these three main clusters of disciplines really offer students a diversity of skills over our 2-year master's program, which provide a good foundation, not only for graduating in such a program, but for pursuing a career or a PhD. Various kind of outcomes can come out of this program that can help students springboard into the next chapter of their life. So this leads me really nicely to the vision and objectives of the program. So this program is uniquely designed for students who are passionate about making a difference in the world, right? Who want to learn about how to apply complex data science methods to inform policy, to inform community decisions, and to solve social problems. We're really advertising for students in all disciplines. I think a diversity of thought is really important in such a field, where interdisciplinary studies form the heart of our program. So of course, having a background in data science and computer science would be a good boon for students coming in, but equally, a background in the arts and humanities and social science and philosophy is equally as important. So we don't discriminate against students coming from various backgrounds. In fact, we encourage this diversity of thought. Really, we want students who are passionate about making a difference, who are not just concerned about a career move to get the most, maximum salary amount, but who want to use their knowledge, their position of privilege to improve society around them, which is really the heart of the Amrita university experience in general. So our overall objectives, we want to provide graduates with skills in rigorous scientific research methods and communication, deep understanding of sustainable development in global South and Indian issues through data science methods, public policy evaluation, and a systems-oriented social science techniques. And of course, as Amrita, we also want to form strong personal skills and strong values for lifelong learning. As a part of this, the course offers 4 specializations currently. We offer a specialization in economic policy, health policy, gender policy, and education policy, so that students can evolve beyond the foundation into something directly applicable, that's really narrowed down into specific issues that they are the most passionate about. And in each of these specializations, our faculty, which come from diverse backgrounds, have an expertise in these and can guide our students in forming their specialization end-year project really well. I can mention that our campus is located within the Amrita Hospital in Faridabad, which is a state-of-the-art largest hospital in South Asia. And so students who are pursuing the health specialization, for example, would have access to this kind of rich infrastructure and exposure to the health sciences that other universities may not provide. A School of Social Behavioral Sciences, our dean, Dr. Bhavani Rao, holds India's only UNESCO chair in gender equality and women's empowerment. So students who are pursuing the gender specialization, for example, would have access to the resources that Dr. Bhavani can bring. And really, this is a unique opportunity for students to pursue these different specializations and have access to, the most wonderful and exciting opportunities through these various infrastructures. Our webinar panelists talked about some of the job prospects, the demand for these kind of a skill set that you get in social data science and policy. Some of the others that came up in our research in developing this program include data privacy analysts, data security and governance specialists, social analytics scientists at NGOs, at the corporate sector, of course, in government and other, nonprofit sectors as well. Graduates from this program could also pursue careers in specialists of data visualization, even journalism, reporting on the impact or lack thereof of public policies, of corporate behaviors, CSR, etc., and then policy advising and much, much more. And finally, I want to mention that this program is not unique just in what we offer in terms of student knowledge and experience, but also in the kind of collaborations that we're able to employ. Amrita, we're working very closely with the Center for Research in Schemes and Policy, CRISP, who is a cadre of retired IAS officers, Government of India, who are not only helping us in delivering the courses through guest lectures, but also providing opportunities for internships, placements, fellowships, and mentorships for students who graduate in this program. We're also working with the United Nations, of course, in UNESCO, through our Dean, Dr. Bhavani's UNESCO chair, but also through UN Women, UNICEF, United Nations Democracy Fund, who we have existing collaborative projects with. Students will be able to work hand in hand with these organizations, along with the government of India, in their internships, in their student projects, etc. As many of you well may know, there is a lot of bias in existing social science and policy research, which focuses only on the global north, Europe, North America policies, priorities, etc. We are very proud that our focus is on the global south, on the Indian context specifically. In the fieldwork, the projects, the specializations we offered have India as a primary priority, which we're very proud about. I'll talk a little bit about the dedicated fieldwork when we go through the curriculum courses. But I mentioned the other, our MOUs with high-profile organizations, and also our location in the Amrita Hospital network really gives our students a unique experience, part of this course. Over the course of 2 years, this is a 4-semester course, jam-packed with great opportunities. You can see here on the slide the color coding for the different fundamentals of data science, policy, and social science, and how our curriculum really blends these together. I want to call your attention to a couple of these courses in particular, especially this Introduction to Indian Society and Culture and the other values courses that are unique to the Amrita curriculum in particular, where students can gain a better understanding of universal values, of personal development and lifelong learning that can supplement our more technical program. I'd also like to bring your attention to this course in the first semester called Immersive Data Collection, right? And then the last semester, Major Project and Publication. So these two are connected. From the beginning of the course to the end, students are encouraged and actually required to go into the field, to go into the number of villages that Amrita currently works with, to take part in hands-on projects that actually serve communities, right? We work very closely with villages across India and helping them in their own development, co-creating along with them solutions for the problems that they face. And so students will be taken for a couple of week immersive data collection process. Well, they'll get to learn about the community, they'll get to become members of the community and come up with not only defining the social problems, but also co-creating solutions along with them. And this really forms the heart of the program as well, and will hopefully translate into their major project and publication at the end of the course. We also require internships, and we will strive to ensure that students after graduation get placed in a career of their choice by networking through our wide network of collaborators like I mentioned before. Our course has a dedicated website, which you can find in our chat window. And I'd ask Drishti to post that website again, where you can find the link to apply and also learn more about our program outcomes, the curriculum, the fee structure, and all of the kind of practical questions you might have. You can also email us at info_sbs@fbd.amrita.edu. That email address will also be in the chat window in case you have any questions for me, for our faculty, and what this program might offer. So that's the end of my presentation here. I'll just stop sharing. And that brings me to the end of this webinar. I hope you've enjoyed your experience here. Of course, you're welcome to reach out to any of us in our faculty and in the School of Social Behavioral Sciences if you have any more questions. So thank you again, and I hope you have a wonderful day. I wish you all the best. Namaskar.